Rakesh, good to see you as always. It's lovely, and thank you for making a bit of time to come and have a chat with us about what you're doing. Let me just start then with the thing that's in my mind at the moment is, you know, how I mean, running a business like yours, people tell me is a bit of a roller coaster. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's highs, there's lows. What is it that makes you get up in the morning to ride the roller coaster day after day? I mean, let's start with you and your motivation. I mean, tell us about that.
Sure thing. No, but yeah, first thing, thanks for having me. Paul, it's always fun to talk with you. The intelligent conversations are always welcome, and they are one of the things that give me high. So on a day like today, when I know that I'm gonna come on a podcast and speak with Paul, gets me up and get me on the roller coaster. But yeah, on the exact answer to your question, I would say, see, there's a lot that happens in a founder's life, right? Regardless of the size of the business or the stage of the business, every stage has its own challenges. Every stage has its own objectives that you want to achieve, and so on. So if you are well aligned with what you want your customers to achieve out of what you want to achieve for your business, right? Because you're aligned. Your business is not about just your thought. It does not exist in isolation. It exists in tandem with the objectives
Yeah.
that your customers want to achieve. So if you are well aligned with what you want to achieve for your customers, in turn want to achieve with your business, I think it itself is a big high and gets you up every morning, get you in your clothes and to the office, to the work, wherever you have to go.
And,
So I think that those objectives are pretty much what keeps me up and keeps me out.
how did you work out? How did you get those things aligned? I mean, often you'll hear people that running business that want to do one thing and customers that perhaps want to do something else. I mean, how did you get your objectives aligned with what the sorts of things that your customers want to achieve? I mean, just tell us about how you figured that out, because that can be quite difficult to get that right, can't it?
I don't think so. There is one straight formula to it. Listen to your customers, right? So the only way to align your objectives with your customers' objectives is just listen to your customers, talk to them with every opportunity that you can. Not just the executive sponsors who are paying or writing the check for you, but the real users who are using it on an everyday basis. So if you get to speak to your customers, and then you establish the right bridge between those who are building
Yeah.
those solutions, those products, those services in your organizations, um, uh, connect them with the customers' need, what they have to say. I think it's aligned, and I don't think there is a second formula to that. There is only one that I can think of.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think lots of other entrepreneurs would say the same thing. It's all about the customers, isn't it? And tell me, when did you realize that you had because you're all over the place, aren't you, in terms of your business, quite a big, in a lot of different jurisdictions. I mean, when did you realize that you had a global business on your hands? I mean, was that on day one, or did that take a while for you to realize that, or was that your original plan? I mean, just give us a
No, I think
flavor.
that was right at the inception, Paul, I would say, because the problem that we are after, and those who perhaps do not know what we do, we are as a company, we are a full stack technology for fund management and fund administration for private equity and venture capital, right? And the business or the industry which we're talking about, the private equity and venture capital, is global. At
Yeah.
least now it is global. Perhaps when we were starting a couple of years ago, it was still small pockets. If you go further a decade back, it was very concentrated pockets between Silicon Valley, New York, London, Singapore,
Yeah.
pretty much. Right now it's global. So when we started, it already was spreading global, and the way it is managed is one single way. The compliances may change by the jurisdiction where the fund manager or the investment fund may be domiciled, but the way it is operated is same, right? There's one way, or there are certain ways you manage these. There are certain ways you monitor your portfolio. There are certain ways you nurture them. There are certain ways You report back to your investors or LPs. You have fiduciary requirements. Everybody has that. The quantum and the nature of that changes by domicile. So I think right at the inception, we knew it was a global business
Okay.
that we are building. What we had to take a call on is where do you focus when you start, and
Yeah.
how do you phase your focus between the jurisdictions?
And how did you work that out? I mean, that's an interesting question. If you've got multiple places that you could go, how did you work out where to go to start?
When you're starting up, it's very hard to pick and choose,
Mm.
because I think the first instinct of any founder is let's get the business anywhere we can, right? And while we also had that thought, the how we balanced that thought was that uh, it's a digital age, right? So your marketing efforts are actually going global, even if you are focusing your digital marketing, your social media marketing on certain geographies, but it still goes global.
Yeah.
So obviously, we've never restricted on the inbounds, right? We always kept the inbounds open, but most of the concentrated marketing efforts were on certain geographies. And the very obvious answer to that is go where the largest number of customers are, right? So you pick up where the maximum AUM is, or the maximum number of funds collectively managing a larger AUM is. That's where you start, and then you keep on increasing your footprint based on how your capacity increases and how much bandwidth you have to spread yourself.
Yeah. So presumably you went to California to start. Would that be right?
I think the known fact is that world's largest money exchange happens between the San Francisco Bay Area and New York. So that started as our concentration.
Yeah. And did you realize at that point that your potential customer base was globalizing? I mean, you talked about it being in a small number of pockets to start with, and it's now spreading out. I mean, did you realize that was going to happen at that point? Were you aware of that trend? And what also, if you were, what was driving that trend? I mean, why has it spread?
So I would say yes, we were aware of that it is going to happen. It was already happening at that point of time, while it may have been limited. But as we are speaking today, we have customers in about 17 countries, all right, and we have customers from geographies which probably you may have never even heard of, right? So it's a small country called Lesotho in Africa.
Okay.
The places like South Africa, to the US, to India to Switzerland to Canada and so on, right? So yes, so it was increasing, and I think the inertia itself becomes the driving force for growth of any industry. What I mean by that is when you start seeing success in a certain geography, right? The other geographies they start following.
Yeah.
So and that's what happened, right? So and the followership is not just because it's a buzzword, it is also because it has an economic impact on the geography which is driving it, right? So the entrepreneurship is known to have a positive economic impact on the countries. So when the countries, smaller or large, they saw that there is a benefit out of promoting entrepreneurship, which in turn is driving obviously
Yeah.
the venture capital, private equity, and other asset management. If you do not drive that, you are lagging behind in that economic growth that you should be part of. So as I said, that inertia itself starts developing the industry across
Yeah.
different geographies.
Yeah. And as you expand the number of jurisdictions, number of geographies that you're in, I mean, are the rules very different? I mean, do you need to think about, I mean, presumably you do, you need to think about the Lesotho in a different way to the way that you think about the UK, perhaps. I mean, how do you handle those sort of differences in the detail of how, that those industries are regulated? I mean, how does that work in
Yeah, so you're right, but there are two parts to it, right? One is, do we have to look at or consider the differences in these geographies and jurisdictions from a solution delivery standpoint, or do we look at those jurisdiction from our service and invoicing and commercial standpoint, right? They are two different things. I'll take the first one. When you talk about the solution or the product delivery standpoint, as I initially said, while the the way these funds operate is largely similar,
Yeah.
the way the compliances are done in each of the jurisdiction is different,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Are they significantly different? Probably no, right? Everything, if you see globally, perhaps have two kind of alignment. Either it will be aligned by the British common law, or it will be aligned with how the US is working,
Yeah.
right? And then everything becomes a hybrid of that. So if you have taken care of these two aspects properly, then addressing any jurisdiction probably is just a plus and minus of few things. Obviously, we have to be mindful of that. We have to be aware of it. We have to take care of it, whether it is servicing our customer the way it is supposed to service them. Um, in certain times when it is not, there are customers in by virtue of the lack of a good solution who are willing to work with us and start with what exists and
Mm.
help us bring those pieces that they need. I think that's again part of a startup's life. Even in the geographies that you are focusing, you may not have everything initially that your product should have, and you do get those customer partners who trust you, who believe in what you are building, who have a belief in your strengths and competencies, and they work with you to bring those pieces in, and that's what we try to do.
Mm. And that, which really kind of comes back to what you were saying earlier about listening to your customers, isn't it? And working out what they need and what would help them and how you can facilitate the things that they're looking for. I mean, so it's kind of, you're kind of going full circle there, aren't you?
100%, 100%.
Yeah. So one of the other things that strikes me, I mean, all businesses have a limit to the resources, but small business, relatively small businesses like yours that are building a global footprint. I mean,
Mhm.
you haven't got a lot of people to delegate stuff to, have you? I mean, you've got a small team. You've got to have that team performing at a very high level pretty much constantly. I mean, tell us about your thoughts on building a team, because the team is at the core of helping your clients, isn't it? I know that technology facilitates that, but the people are really important. I mean, give us your thoughts on building a team to build a global footprint. I mean, how do you perceive that issue and how do you work on that? How do you, I mean, give us your take on that.
Absolutely. I think there are, see, when you're building a team, there are only two parts to look at. One is the aptitude and the other is the attitude. The aptitude is uncompromisable, particularly when you're building a technology product. So you need the resources, the team members, the colleagues who understand that piece of technology, particularly in our business, I'm saying technology because we are a technology business. So you cannot compromise on those who have that technology expertise. What additionally you have to be very mindful of is the attitude, right? And what you need in a early stage startup, particularly, or a small startup, particularly, is the people who are entrepreneurial in their mindset,
Mm.
right? And it's hard to find. It's easier said than done, right? People generally are used to of the comfort of a corporate predictability around
Mm.
their salaries, their compensations, their off days, the vacations, and so on, which is very different in a startup like us or anybody else for that matter, right? There can be times when you cannot predict your vacations,
Mm.
right? And you have to work with your family around it. There can be times when probably your compensation is delayed for whatever reason. That month it was a difficult month, money didn't come in time, your salaries were delayed, right? Do the people that you work with, do they align with your thought process? Do they believe in what business you are building, with in what direction? Do they take the ownership, accountability of the tasks that they are doing? And that's where the entrepreneurial mindset comes in. And That's how you build it. I think there's these two components. One is totally uncompromisable. The other you have to balance. So if you have, say, 50 people team or 30 people team, maybe you can balance. You'll say, okay, 10 people I need who I cannot compromise on the attitude, which is, when I say attitude, I'm talking about the entrepreneurial mindset. And other 20, okay, it's okay. I can just hire them for the skill set, but I need at least these many people who should be very well aligned with the
I mean,
thought process of entrepreneurship.
it's interesting you say that because it seems to me there's two interesting issues there. One is that I mean you can test for technical skills, can't you? You can test people's ability to code things. It's more difficult to kind of test for the entrepreneurial mindset. I mean, how do you work out whether people have got that? And also, one person's entrepreneurial mindset might be slightly different to another person's. I mean, I mean, give us your thoughts on how you work out whether the people that you're recruiting are entrepreneurial. I mean, because you could just say, "Are you entrepreneurial?" and they say yes, but it's more complicated than that, isn't it? I mean, give us your
Yeah.
takeaway on that.
No, I wish there was an easy answer to this, Paul,
Yeah.
right? Uh, this is the only thing that works here is probably your intuition, right? Your gut as a founder. And more often than not, it does go wrong,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So what you have to probably do is one, follow your intuition, have the right questions, let your gut tell you whether this person fits into that bracket of entrepreneurial mindset or not. But if they do not, I think you have to be quick at letting them go,
Yeah.
or find another role where probably they fit in. If you have that split that I just said, right? So I can have X number of people who I need uncompromised with that mindset, and another Y which I do not. So either shift them towards the other side or let them go.
Yeah. And do you have different roles for that? Do you have purely a bunch of technical people that do the engineering piece? Do you have the people that you use the entrepreneur? I mean, what are the different things that you use the entrepreneurial people for?
When you look for the people who are entrepreneurial, the first thing that you will see coming from them voluntarily is a will to take on multiple
Yeah.
activities, roles, tasks. And that's what happens when you're building a lean team in an early stage startup, right? So if somebody is voluntarily coming up, you know that you have that kind of person. It'll work out or not, the only time will tell. But that's one of the indicators. But to answer your question, how do you have roles? Probably not. With the smaller size companies, they are far more flat in the hierarchy than the large corporations. I have worked in corporations with thousands of people, right? Tens of thousands of people for that matter as well, right? Where you can have that hierarchy. If two people in 100 people team are not working, nobody cares. But in a team which has 20 people and two people are not working, 10%
Problem.
workforce is not working,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, so I think you have to have a clear channel of communication, talk to them, understand if they need any support to be able to deliver. If they have also to, that gives a back channel to you to understand whether they have the competence to deliver or not. If either of the two things not match, something that you can deliver or help them with the resources to deliver, help it. If despite that they are not able to perform, my answer to the previous question, be quick at letting them go.
Yeah. And in terms of, so there's a challenge. One challenge is recruiting good people and the right people. Then the challenge is getting them to work together as a team,
Retaining.
isn't it? Which is also another interesting challenge, particularly when you're working in lots of different places and doing lots of different things with lots of different clients. I mean, and clients may have quite variable needs potentially, or different types of relationships with you. I mean, give us a sense of your thoughts on how you build that team to deliver a global footprint. I mean, give us your sense on the way that you would approach that and what works in relation to that.
So if I understand the question right, you're saying how do you one keep the team after you have recruited them, and second, how do you make them deliver what the objectives are,
Yeah.
right? So you see, keeping the team is just a function of alignment, as I said. But you cannot be 100% sure if they will always stick around. And in a smaller team, you generally are closer knit. So the political or the differences in the thoughts are lesser likely. What is more likely is the mismatch between the opportunity and the ambition of the individual,
Yeah.
right? So if that is happening, you cannot help that much, right? But if there's something which is not aligning in the thought process or the availability of the resources to help them deliver, those are the things which are in your control. And just make sure that you keep that open channel of communication, understand that, and help them with those kind of resources, provided you can afford to have those resources. There are times when you cannot even afford certain resources as well, and that is when again that open communication channel comes handy. How do you work with them to make them deliver? I think it's again, it's the alignment of the vision and showing them the growth, right? So what I always suggest, particularly when you are a very small team, every single individual of your team should, in one way or the other, have an interface with the customer. And one of the
Okay.
biggest thing that can bring confidence into your employees and teams or colleagues is hearing that you are doing right things directly from the customers. There's no better high than hearing from your customer that yes, you have built a great product, it helps us, we love what you are doing. So I going and telling my team member versus they hearing directly from customer have an entirely different impact. And we try and make sure that at some point of time they have some interface, even if it is not they are talking to the customer directly. They probably sometimes join in as part of the calls we are having with the existing customers, sometimes as part of the demos that we are giving to the prospective customers, and so on. So just let them hear it from the market that what you are doing is actually worth doing, and that's what brings the alignment, I would say.
Yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because in the sense that competitive advantage is about the match between what your company offers and what the market is looking for. I mean, if you've got a really tight fit between your offer and what the market demands,
Yeah.
that's one of the keys to growth, isn't it? Is matching those things. And what you're saying is that your customers will tell you whether your staff are interacting in the right way. That gives you the feedback loop. I mean, that's a really interesting when you grow, because you will get bigger over time, I'm sure. I mean, how will you manage that when you have a lot more people? Have you thoughts about that?
See, if you have the people, so there are two challenges to that. One, you obviously need to give a channel of growth to the people who were there with you early on,
Mm,
which becomes a two-way split. There would be certain who would be equipped enough to carry that culture forward
mm,
and help you grow the organization. There would be certain who understand that culture, they love it, but they are probably not the right people to lead and grow the teams,
mm.
right? So you have to identify the first set of it and let them help you grow that organization, and then it carries forward. So whether it's a decision making, whether it's respect to your people, whether it's communication with your customers, or whatever it may be.
Yeah. And the other thing that interests me about this idea of small teams, big global footprint is what that also means is that there's a lot of risk involved. I mean, the more jurisdictions you're in, the more opportunities for things to go horribly wrong. I mean, what's your thoughts on the kind of risk profile issue and the management of risk, given that inevitably you've got a relatively small team? I mean, how do you
Mhm.
manage that? How do you keep track of what those risks are? How do you, if you see something coming on the horizon, how might you respond to that? I mean, give us your thoughts on that process.
It depends on what nature of risk you're talking about, Paul. Right? If you're talking it again from the product and solution standpoint, whether the solution fits into a customer in a particular jurisdiction, uh, and if you identify that, or your customer will tell you, right, when you are demoing and you're discussing, because it's not that they come onto your website, they subscribe to it. In a solution like us, there are multiple discussions that happen. You would know, right? Now there are two approaches to it that you can take. uh, One, you will see that that's an emerging or an existingly large market for you, and you would be okay to assign certain amount of resources to build
Yeah.
and address that market. Or you will see, no, this is one-off customer. I probably will add one or two or more there, which are probably not running into hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. And you should know when to say no to a customer as well, respectfully.
Yeah.
No, I don't think this is the right place for us. We will probably let you find somebody else.
And in terms of that judgment call, is that a judgment call that you make or your staff make? I mean, how does that work in terms of decision making? I mean, the other interesting thing about these kind of businesses is that you have small teams, which at one level makes decision making easier, but you're dealing with an awful lot of customers, which perhaps makes decision making harder because you've got to get it right in multiple. I mean, give us your sense of how does that decision making process work?
See, most of the time, the decision is taken by data. It's not taken by me or my team, right?
Okay.
The data speaks for itself,
Okay.
right? When I just spoke about Is that a large market enough for me to assign more resources? I have the data behind it. If I see that there's no market for me, it's one-off customer, it will eat into my resources for another 2 months, another $50,000, $100,000 to build what I have to build for them, and then I cannot amortize it over the rest of the customers. The data speaks that I should not do it.
Okay.
Right? Nobody can change. So most of the times, the decision is based on the data, regardless of who's taking it. And sometimes you do have to take the leap of faith, which is generally a founder's intuition, as I say. So
Yeah.
you
And
have you have to take
one of the advantages of your sorts of companies is that they're data rich, aren't they? Which
correct.
presumably, I mean, I'd be interested in your thoughts on this. Presumably that improves your decision making because better data, one would think, would lead to better outcomes.
It certainly does. I think that's the premise that we have built everything that we have built, right? So when we encourage and tell our customers that your life will be far easier when you rely on the quality structured data, we ourselves have to believe in that, and
Yeah.
that's what we do.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And so just give us a flavour of what sort of data that is. Well, what does that mean to, I mean, if I was a customer, for example, give me a flavour of how you would improve the data that's available to me. Just so that people
From the
understand.
customer use point of view.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's an interesting one. So if you see again, if you look at the market or the customer set that we address, all right, between the private equity and venture capital, that business is nothing but data, right?
Right.
The only time perhaps the data plus intuition comes handy is when they are making a deal or an investment decision. Prior to that, after that, it's just the data, right? So prior to that, when I say, okay, you have to look at the market trends, you have to look at the growth of the market, you have to look at how the company has performed quarter over quarter, year over year, what kind of decisions have impacted that growth, positive or negative. Same if you switch to the portfolio, right? So how are the trends between their performance month over month? Because a company, fundamentally maybe sitting in a portfolio of a fund for 3, 4, 5, 7, sometimes longer as well, years. When I say, right? So if how can you catch those small signals, fluctuations that may have happened in their performance, and how do you link them with what decisions may have caused those fluctuations, positive or negative, is all data. And then further, when you have to go for compliance, when you have to go for
Yeah.
audits, when you have to go for investor slash LP reporting, it's nothing but data. So all those numbers is what we streamline, we make them more sense, to help them make more sense out of that data, and uh, get them to a decision making which is more solid because of a data backing it, rather than just
Yeah.
seeing that last quarter, last 6 months, last one year. No, you have to find those finer signals and things that may have moved those signals in between.
Yeah. I mean, presumably customers believe in that. They want better data, presumably. I mean,
Mhm.
is that because they've got very poor data at the moment, or is that because you bring something different to the table? I mean,
No, they don't have poor data. So it's the nature of the market. So if you see private markets by itself is very opaque. It's not regulated the way the public markets are, right? So the data is not reported to the market in a structured manner. So the quality of data is very subjective. The companies report the only things which are probably structured are the annual financials, which may be driven by the gap of that jurisdiction. When I say gap, I'm talking about the accounting standard gap, right? So it may be US gap versus IFRS versus UK gap or something else. That is the only thing that is structured. Rest everything in terms of reporting is the way they feel like
okay.
reporting. Right. So that's what makes it painful. Now, if I have 10 companies or 20 companies or 30 companies in my portfolio, and they are reporting and capturing the data of their business in their own ways and giving it back to me, because it's hard for startups as well. We have to understand to structure the report
Okay.
which matches the expectation of one single investor. I may have 10 different VCs sitting on my cap table. And if all 10 of them ask in their own way, it's hard to consume it.
Yeah.
Or I would be assigning a lot of resources to report to each one of them. And what ultimately happens is I say, okay, this is one report. I'm giving it to all of you. You figure it out how you want to consume it. And that's where the challenge comes in. And that's where the quality of data versus the output becomes challenging.
Yeah. And is that the area where you intervene? Is that the,
We
as it
do.
were, the problem that you fix for people?
That is also the problem that we fix, but a very major part of the problem that we fix. Yes.
Yeah. And one of the other interesting things about that is that presumably over time, the data improves. So that you start here, and but over time that gets better. Does that mean that you can do? I mean, what sort of different things can you do now that perhaps you couldn't do a few years back? I mean, is that changing rapidly?
It is. It is. I would say there's a lot of evolution that has happened, right? And while it may sound like everybody is talking about AI now, but
Yeah.
it does make things lot easier than it was in some at some point of time. What earlier probably was just document parsing and ways to structure the data, I have better evolved technologies around RAG, which is retrieval augmentation and all from for the unstructured data that exist and comes in different shapes and sizes in the flat files, PDFs, Excels, images,
Yeah.
and whatnot. Right. So consuming that, structuring that has become far easier with the evolution and technology, and we are making sure that we stay on top of the technology to deliver the faster, more efficient, higher quality results using the better technologies now.
Yeah. I mean, presumably because customers' expectations of what you do is they're changing, aren't they? They want, I mean, customer expectations always only seem to go one way. They just go up, don't they? So they're wanting more,
Well,
presumably.
I don't know whether the customers' expectations have gone up to use AI. Probably not yet. I think there is still some apprehensions
Right.
around that. But customers' expectation to have a quality output has never changed. They
Yeah.
always wanted a quality output, AI or not. I don't think they would care even today. If I don't even talk about AI, never use AI, but give them a quality output,
Yeah. They
that's
don't
what
care. They
customer
just,
wants.
it's the output that matters. It's not how you deliver it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And tell me, I mean, I don't know what your experience has been, but my view is that things go wrong occasionally. You know, that I've never been in a business where things have not gone wrong occasionally. I mean, give us your thoughts on failure and dealing with those kind of things when things go horribly wrong. I mean, again, with a small team, that can be very destabilizing sometimes. I mean, what's your thoughts on that process of dealing with problems that come up, dealing with failure when people make mistakes? So, I mean, give us your thoughts on that, because that's there's a lot of talk, isn't there, about fail fast and move fast and break things and all that kind of stuff. But it's hard on people psychologically. I mean, what's your take on teams and failure and problems?
See, if I pick up from the point that you said, what's a common, uh, I would say certain people's talking about build fast, fail fast, break fast, whatever it is. That personally, somehow I don't align with that
Right,
ideology. I believe building a business is a marathon. You cannot just do that.
right,
Uh, I think it probably may work where you are a fresh out of the college entrepreneur trying something, you do not understand the market, you are not delivering something which has a business impact on your customer, right? Then yes, okay, I'm building a say not necessarily the right example. Say I'm a text to speech engine or an image generation engine, and I want to try fast, fail fast. Yeah, it may work, but in a business or an enterprise solution like what you're building, you cannot do
right.
build fast, fail fast because you cannot even think of failing fast till you have built and attempted and deployed it with the customers,
Yeah,
right? And once you have deployed, your failure means your customer's failure,
yeah,
right? So I think I don't align with that ideology because I come from the B2B enterprise, heavy reliant trust kind of systems where this ideology does not align. But yeah, to your other point, do the failures happen? They do happen, right? But then there's no one answer to all kinds of setbacks, right? Setbacks have their own natures. They can be financial, they can have an impact on customer, indirect to you, they can have an impact to you and indirect to the customer. There could be infrastructure failures, there could be people failures, there could be avoidable failures, there could be unavoidable failures, right? So I think all of them have different treatment. What can you do to see that they are addressed and you don't shut down. There are two parts to it again, right? One, which probably is not tangible, and it's to have a control on your own nerves as a team, as a leader, right? So
It's
as
about
if you can
resilience. Are you talking about resilience?
I'm talking about the patience, ability to stay calm, and resilience. So resilience follows after that,
Mm.
right? So if you can stay calm in any situation, you are better equipped to
Yeah.
find a solution. If you get hassled in every situation, then it gets harder, right? And the situation only gets worse. It does not help.
And
So I
is
think
that,
that's
sorry,
one part.
and is that how you see your job as the leader when the business is confronted by difficulties? So is that what's important?
500%.
Yeah.
Every single day, every single moment, right? So you have to think about it, and it's not only when something goes wrong; it's even when you are building something, right? So while there may be a rush in knowing and identifying a new feature, just as an example, for a customer, what impact does it have? Are you able to monetize it in the future? Will you be able to amortize the resources that you spend on it? Will you bring a value back to your business and your stakeholders to it? What value will it bring to your customers? You can only think of those things when you have that ability to stay calm in those situations. So excitement is one, but still having control and on that on your mind, whether it's a hardship, whether it's excitement, whether it's something else, is extremely important in a leader's life, I would say.
Yeah. And to come back to the resilience thing, I mean, there's a lot of talk at the moment about, mental health and, in the work, in the labor, in the workforce. Do you have, I mean, building a global business with a small team is quite a tough gig, which means that it's going to be inevitably it's going to be quite hard on the people that you've recruited. I know you've talked about recruiting the best possible people that you can and having the right characteristics and all the rest of it. But that resilience thing, how do you make sure that your team have got that? Is that something that you look for at the beginning? Is that something that you work with people to help them develop? I mean, what's your take on the resilience
See,
piece?
there's no way to identify it right in the beginning, right? Unless you are hiring a founder who has gone through that hardship, right, and now coming back to join you for some reasons, right? Where they either exited that business or
Mm.
closed down or wound down that business and joining you. You can still guess, okay, they had that kind of resilience. For the rest of the guys, I think it develops over a period of time, and how you develop it is that you, again, as founders, you have your role to play in that, right? You have to be available to them when the times are difficult. Don't always listen to the people to answer back to them, right? Sometimes just listening helps.
Mm.
But make sure that your efforts in the right direction, with even if with uh, smaller progress, is visible to them, right?
Yeah.
So so that they know that you are working in the right direction and not sitting quiet on a situation that is there. So it's built over a time, and you do have a role to play in that. If you are indifferent, uh, your people have a lot of other opportunities in the market.
Yeah, you'll lose them.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Let me ask you a couple of sort of questions just to wind things up. I mean, you've been on a really interesting journey. I mean, when you look back on that journey, I mean, what would you say the big things are that you've learned from the experience, and perhaps what would you do differently if you were starting again?
Well, it's probably just me. It may not be generalized with a lot of people, right? So I came from uh, the the organizations which were fairly large. Although, yeah, I grew with those organizations. They were small and became big over a period of time. But sometimes when you have grown large, you forget about the earlier days, right? And then when you start afresh into your new entrepreneurial journey, you start from where you are leaving in your previous role,
Yeah, yeah,
right? So, and then you bring in certain things which are more relevant to a grown company rather than an early
yeah,
company.
yeah.
I probably, if I have to do it again, I would probably unlearn my previous experiences
Yeah.
faster than I did in this
Yeah.
journey.
And what sort of things? I mean, that's quite an interesting question there. I mean, what sort of things would you like to unlearn from working in a bigger
I
organization?
think it's probably about how much time you want to give people to deliver something, how
Right.
much rope you want to give them initially, how much you want to delegate versus be involved directly,
Yeah.
and so on, right? So when you are in a grown environment, you delegate more, you stay a little hands off, let people try more, right? Wherein in an early stage environment, the situation demands that you are more involved because you have limited time, limited resources, and so on. And if you tend to give too much time to certain things which could have been done sooner with lesser resources, lesser time, you lose a lot.
Yeah.
So I think those are certain type of things which would stand as an example.
Yeah. And one last thing. I mean, in terms of the future, I mean, you mentioned earlier on about the fact that the market is still growing, your market is still globalizing. I mean, it's still
Mhm.
developing in parts of the world, although it's fairly well developed in places like California and the UK. I mean, what are your thoughts on where you're at on that globalization journey for your company? I mean, you're in a bunch of jurisdictions already. I mean, are you starting to slow down on going wide? I mean, just give us a sense of of the future,
I
how
think
you
we
see the
we are
future.
we are just beginning, Paul. Right? We haven't even scratched the surface yet. So there's a long way to go. There's a big delta to cover. Thankfully, there's big enough market for for us as well as few more players. So I'm not worried about losing the edge, even if there are more players with a little more muscle who may come in the market. So market is only growing. We have scratched the surface, and we're very bullish about both the market and our growth.
Yeah. I mean, it must be very exciting.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that connects with your first question. What brings you up, takes you out of the bed and get to the work? I think that's one of the things.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I think building a global business is one of the most exciting things one of the most exciting challenges you can have in a business
Of course.
context. I mean, it's, because it's so interesting, isn't it? And so
It is.
fascinating and so challenging as well. So,
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. I
yeah.
always say as a founder, you live all humanly possible emotions in one single day.
Yes, yes, it's a very good way to put it, Rakesh. Listen, thank you for coming on and sharing your story. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating, and good luck going forward. I mean, like I just said, I mean, there's lots of exciting things happening, and I'm sure you won't get bored. I'm pretty sure that's the case. So,
Not for many years to come, I would say.
yeah, likewise, Rakesh.
But
Good to
thank you for
see you.
having me.
Yeah, good to see you, and I'll speak to you soon. Cheers.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Pleasure.
Bye bye.